Welcome to Confessions Beyond the Food. I'm your host, Nancy Ridlin. Let's dig in and get inspired. Okay, so welcome back to Confessions Beyond the Food. Today I have a James Beard chef. Ow, ow! He's a consultant and he is a CEO of Bellyful Hospitality.
That's right.
So welcome,
Thank
Chef
you.
Bradford.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Oh, so where are you joining us from?
Hot ass Dallas, Texas.
Awesome. Where are you from?
I'm from New York.
New York?
Yes.
In proper New York City? Or?
In New York City, yes.
Okay.
And I'm here in Texas for a couple clients. I get down here like once a month. So it's so nice to come down here in July and August. It's so refreshing.
It is refreshing.
Yeah.
But I heard it's like really, really hot in New York City.
It is. It's hot. Humid hot, but this is different. It's a different kind of heat.
Yeah. It's really hot.
Yeah.
So anyway, New York City. So how long have you lived there? Just out of curiosity.
I've been there on and off for 25, 26 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, quite a long time. Yeah.
So, I mean, how is it? I mean, you have family, right? You have kids. Do. So how is it like raising kids in the city?
We love it. I mean, and we meaning my wife and our kids both. My wife, has lived in New York most of her life, in different parts of New York, but our kids are both born in Harlem and grown up in New York, and they love traveling, but they still love going back home. They love everything New York has to offer, the challenges, the craziness, but, the museums, the eating out, the different neighborhoods, they love it. And, I like to say we use the city. We go out, we go to different boroughs, we eat everywhere, we visit museums, use the parks, all that kind of stuff. So it's a great place to live. I mean, it's not easy. I'll be honest with you. It's not for everybody, but luckily, my wife and I love it, and luckily our kids do now too. So every time we go away, they enjoy traveling, and they always go, I'm ready to go home, or I'm glad to be back home. They like where we live. So
that's awesome. So are they interested in cooking?
Very much. Yeah. They've been cooking each since they were, 2-3 years old. I've always kind of had them in the kitchen with me, and they've both taken to it. My daughter's taken a lot more to baking, but they both cook. My son does more cooking than baking. He knows how to make proper cocktails. They're both quite the host. When people come over, they're making tea and infusing it and offering all kinds of stuff. But yeah, my daughter bakes almost nightly, and it's beautiful. But the frustrating thing is that she's on Instagram or TikTok, and I have hundreds and hundreds of cookbooks, and her godfather's a pastry chef. Her other godfather's a chef who has a couple restaurants. I have all these books and everything, and she goes online and finds things, and she cooks without recipes. Like she's mastered a chocolate chip cookie that's as good as any I've ever had. And I asked, she doesn't have a recipe. It's in her head. Like she knows the technique. And I'm like, well, can we write it down? So I always thought I'd have to write down so she could make my recipes. And here I am like, can you write it down so I can make it? So it's fun to watch that, like how they interact with food. And this generation is just obsessed with food. Social media, like anybody who's on social media follows at least a handful of food accounts. And, it's this weird voyeurism where people like watching food be made, or, dishes with a twist, or that look a certain kind of way. But their generation, all her friends, like they know ingredients, they know the cool restaurants. Like, how do you guys know all this? And it's, it's mostly social media, but they're very educated in terms of what they've eaten, where they've been, especially, kids in the city, where they go for their birthdays. It's cool. And it's kind of hard to process sometimes. Like, how do you know so much at 14 or 12 years old? And you're telling me where you want to go for dinner, or what kind of food you want to eat today. And it's like, at that age, I couldn't even, I didn't know from meatloaf and mashed potatoes. That was like, I didn't know all these Thai and Southeast Asian flavors and dishes, and they're like rattling stuff off. So it's fun. It's really fun to go out to eat with them.
Well, you train them well. I mean, you're out and about around the country, you cook for everyone. So you go home and you're like, okay, kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And they hear the stories of kitchen life, 20 years ago when it was different than it is now. So They think that's very entertaining also.
Oh, well,
So
that's a whole nother podcast in
yeah,
itself,
it
probably.
really is. They've probably heard more stories than they should have at this point. But I remember when they were little. I mean, they were 5 or 6 or whatever, and I was upset with them at something. I wasn't really yelling at them, but they're like, "Oh, you're yelling at us! Stop! You're always yelling at us." I'm like, I've never, compared to how I was as a chef, like I've never yelled at you. I've never raised my voice like that.
Hmm.
And like, no, you're yelling at us. I said, you know what? Let's do something. And I called a friend of mine who used to work for me, and I just handed the phone. I said, "Can you explain to them what Daddy yelling is like?" And so he started telling them stories. They're like, "Oh my god!"
Scary.
So that was kind of funny. But yeah,
Yeah.
they know all sides of the restaurant business. But it's made them really great diners. When we go out to eat, they appreciate good service. My daughter likes to see the kitchen, or she'll say, "Do we know anybody here? Can we go say hi to the chef?" Um, so they've experienced that. So it's great. It's not just like serve me and I'm going to eat this food. They really understand what it takes to create that experience, and they've seen it, from both sides. So it's really nice to know that they'll be able to influence their friends in a way, and tip well and be polite to your staff and all those kind of things.
And
So
to serve others. I mean, I
yeah,
think that's something that every child, in their
yeah,
teenage years or college years, you should wait tables or work in the
or wash
kitchen
dishes.
or wash dishes. You
Yeah,
should serve others.
yeah.
And it's a great way to learn, what it takes, like you
It really
said.
is
And
patience and
yes, yeah.
but,
So
yeah.
that not many people have these days, since
No, it's
they're
true.
all like Yelp reviewers.
Right.
So
Yeah, everybody's a critic.
yeah. So, well, today we're going to kind of talk about kind of what it takes to start up a restaurant, because you've done a couple of those. Is that
Yeah, I'm up to 40 something now.
40?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
what was the first one like that you did? I'm just curious.
Well, it's interesting. My whole career, or the important stages of my career, have kind of been accidents.
Mhm.
I started cooking. I was in college, finishing up, and I was working at a Tony Roma's, like washing dishes and prepping, and it was kind of a job. It was either that or start coaching and like be a graduate assistant. Both made no money. I had just finished playing football. I love football. I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I said, well, if I work in this restaurant, the pay's the same, the hours are the same, I don't have to wear a suit, and I get free food. So I said, well, let me try this out. And I did it. I was there for like 6 months and taking classes. And the guy on the grill, this guy, his nickname was Skates. And like really fast, talked a lot, but real great personality, very outgoing. He worked the grill and he was really good. And we were in service one night, and I was in the back. I was like peeling potatoes or making apple pies or something. And like 3 police officers walk in the kitchen. They handcuff him. They take him out the back door, like he had violated parole or something. And this is in the middle, like you couldn't make it up, right? In the middle of service, and the manager's like, come here, Brad, come here. And he hands me these tongs. He's like, work the grill the rest of the night. And it wasn't hard cooking. It was Tony Roma's, but flipping the ribs, don't burn them, chop them, whatever. And we get done with service, and he's like, do you want to work over here? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? This seems like fun. And, it was a raise in pay, and I was on the line with the cool guys. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do this. And that was kind of where it started. And I got a taste of like the rush of working service and like learning how to finish a dish properly. And, again, it wasn't involved cooking, but there was a process to follow. And I remember the guy who used to work next to me, this guy, Luis, he always had the good weed. He was like quiet. He had like 3 jobs, and he was the guy everybody kind of learned from. And I worked for like a week or 2 next to him, and he started grabbing. He's like, come here. And he would make food for himself during the night, and no one knew. But he would like take the marinated chicken we're supposed to be for the barbecue chicken, and he would like toss it in cornstarch, and he would like get some soy sauce, and he would do like stir fried chicken. I'm like, where's this food coming from? And he was just making it on a station to eat, because he would just eat during the night. And so he showed me how to make stir fried chicken. I still remember, ironically, at Tony Roma's, that's where I learned how to make it was like a General Tso style chicken. And he marinated it in pineapple juice and dredged it in cornstarch, threw it in the fryer, and like did this whole thing. I was like, wow, that's cool. So it's like I started seeing like what you could do with food, outside of here's the formula of Tony Roma's what you do. And that's when I started getting interested. And that was kind of how I started cooking. So, and then fast forward, I was at Lever House in 2008 before the big crash, and Lehman Brothers was across the street in Midtown, and it was like our biggest lunch client. And the day Lehman Brothers went down, we went in for lunch the next day. There was 3 people in the dining room. I was like, wow, this isn't going to end well. And within a month, the owner sort of sold the business and told us at the last minute, it's like, I'm going to close, and you just tell them we're taking a break and it's over. So I was at a point in my life, I was about to turn 40. We just found out my wife was pregnant, and they closed the restaurant. And I was like, wow, this can be a defining moment or, a disaster. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. I just didn't feel like taking another job. I knew that was like, all my friends like, oh my God, where are you going to work? What are you going to do? I was like, I don't know if I want to take another, like there's this false sense of security with a job. And I got a call from a friend, Terrence Brennan, who had Picholine and Artisanal at the time. And he had just taken over a space, and he calls me up, and I was literally cleaning my desk out. And he calls me up. He's like, hey, I'm really sorry to hear about Lieberhaus. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm cleaning my desk out. He said, can you meet me downtown tomorrow? I said, sure. So I go down to meet him, and we meet in this restaurant, and we sit down and we like have coffee. And he's like, so I'm taking this place over on Monday, and I need help, and I could use your help. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but sure. And I knew him, but we had never worked together. And so I show up on Monday, and he hands me a piece of paper. He goes, here you go. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I go, that looks like a nice menu. He goes, yeah. He goes, I don't know anybody here, so fire whoever you want. Let's start prepping the menu. I got recipes for you. We got to be open by Thursday for the Tribeca Film Festival. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I'm standing there, and he's like, I'll be back in a couple hours. He like left me. So somehow in less than a week, we turned over the product. We cleaned the storeroom. We figured these recipes out. We ended up firing like 3 or 4 people. He sent a couple of people to help, and I helped him open this restaurant and spent like 4 or 5 months with him. And I was like, wow, this was cool. Like, this was like, you talk about SWAT team. This was just figure it out, and then what I learned in that process, everything I knew besides cooking, being around restaurants and openings, how to organize, how to delegate, how to figure shit out on the fly. I was like, wow, this is kind of fun. This is a rush. And then he didn't need me anymore. And like, so it was kind of that yo-yo of like, this is really intense. And then it's like, okay, we're good. I'm not going to pay a consultant anymore. Got my staff. And then someone on that job referred me to somebody. And over the course of, 10, 11 years doing this, I've done 40 something openings now. All by word of mouth, being referred by a contractor, or a kitchen designer, or another chef, or whatever it might be. So, and in the process have kind of found this niche of mostly new restaurants. I don't love doing the Gordon Ramsay come in and fix the broken restaurant, because it makes great TV, but it's super stressful, and it doesn't stick. There's always, oh, that's not how we used to do it, or my cousin's the owner, and I'm going to do what I want to do. So I've found a way to come in to new restaurants very early on, way before they'd hire a chef, and be that voice of the chef. Take the designers and the architects and make sure they're building something that's operational, keeping the owner focused and clarifying their concept, bringing in the team I work with, the branding people, the wine people, the service trainers, and really keep the restaurant on concept. Make sure it's the right kitchen, and then develop the menu for them, and then do the training and maintenance going forward. So it's nice because I'm always at a different phase of that process with various people. So it's, there's days I'm in the kitchen for a period of time. There's days I'm meeting with designers, working construction sites, making sure things are installed properly. So it's really a fun process.
So do you still get that rush every time?
Yeah, every time.
That's
because
so
you can't, everyone is different. And there's like one of my confessions, I guess I would say, because there's probably many, but I still miss that feeling that 5 minutes before service, when there's an espresso in your hand and it's a full reservation book, and you're standing there and the pass is clean, and it's just like that anything can happen moment, and you feel as prepared as you can be, and then within an hour something's happening you weren't prepared for. And to me, that's what I always loved so much, is how quickly can we figure it out, or how quickly can we dig out of being in the weeds, or how quickly is a cook going to go down and need help, or tell you they were prepared and they weren't prepared. Like, it's just, to me, it's like kind of reading people at that time and seeing that person's going to be in trouble. I can tell. or this crew is ready. Like, it's just, there's an energy to it that you can't replicate, and it's exhausting and it's really stressful, but there's nothing like it. And it was just, I just always remember that couple minutes before service, like the stainless steel is perfectly clean and everything's lined up and the napkins are all folded. And like I said, I used to have the when I was at the Phoenician, like the coffee guy knew at like 4:52 to have an espresso for me on the pass. And just like everybody was ready. And then within an hour, somebody was just falling apart. And it's the best. It's like the best feeling. And then, at the end of the night, that feeling at the end of service, like your feet are tired. I was working the pass, my voice was hoarse, you're hungry, whatever, but it's like so rewarding to know that like 180 or 250 people had an amazing time, or you made their anniversary or their birthday or whatever it is. It's nothing like it. Yeah.
Wow, I love how you describe that, like the experience that you provide someone. And
yeah, and a lot of cooks don't realize that. Like, it wasn't until I was a chef and, the way, hey, chef, can you say hi to this table? Can you go to this table? And you go in the dining room and like you leaving the kitchen for the dining room. Like, it's been executed in movies before where it's been shot where, the chef walks through the kitchen door and then goes in the dining room, and then it's music and dim, candlelight and soft lighting and the buzz and all that. And you go from this bright, hot environment, with the bright light, everyone's yelling and everyone's on edge, and you go outside and then it's like this calm, this din of the dining room. And you go out there and you walk by in a chef coat, and you could be a dishwasher, but if you're in a chef coat, everyone's like, oh, it's a chef. What's going on? See, who's he going to say? Who does he know? And there's a power to that, but there's a responsibility when you see that in people's eyes. Like, the Phoenician was a good example because it was so expensive. Like, we knew that this person might have been waiting all year for this birthday celebration. Like, they're not eating here once a week or once a month. So there's an incredible amount of pressure when somebody's trusting you with, like, I'm celebrating my birthday or my anniversary or whatever life event. They're putting it in your hands to make sure that they have an amazing time. And, so that's why when when you go in the dining room and you see that, you come back in the kitchen and it's like, stop for a second. Just, imagine like your whole paycheck being spent for this meal tonight. You're plating their lamb, and, this meal cost, which is also the screwed up thing about restaurants, but this meal might cost what your paycheck is. So when you start putting it in perspective, like, yeah, let me take a second and make sure it's cooked perfectly. So yeah, there's a joy to that though.
Do you see like a common thread between chefs that have that kind of, responsibility and relating to their success? Is that something that is instilled in every chef, or?
No, I think it's a process. Obviously people are different, but I think as you come up, I came up in a different time also. I came up in a time where, like, shut up and do what you're told, and hopefully you'll learn and take notes, and you weren't allowed to really question this generation. And it's funny because it's changed me as a person, but this generation now, you got to tell them why. And not that that's a bad, like, you really it should have been that way. But there was a sort of a process where you're not even a cook. You're just prepping until they allow you to go near the stove, and then you're cooking and you're getting yelled at, and just do what I say, do my menu. Then you become a sous chef, and maybe you're doing the ordering and you're having menu discussions with the team. And then you become a chef and you realize, wow, I'm not cooking anymore. I'm managing people. I'm managing costs. I'm trying to, like, put creative seeds in people's heads to develop because I don't have time because I'm in meetings or all the obligations. So it's an evolutionary process that happens. And so when you get to that point, you kind of have a choice to say, okay, I got screamed and yelled at. This is going to be my style. Or you say, I'm going to learn those lessons, but I can do it in a different way because that's not the environment I want. And you make those choices as in any career. You make those choices as you advance of who do I want to be? What kind of environment do I want to foster? And you see the results pretty soon. So if you become a screamer and a yeller, your kitchen's on edge. And I'm not going to lie, I had that in me in the beginning. And then you realize, like, let me be a teacher and just share everything I know and get their ideas and be a better team and come up with things as a group. And then once you feel that environment being developed, then you attract people that want to be in that environment. And then you attract creativity, and then your dishes evolve, and then you become this place where you don't want to leave.
Yeah. And everyone is invested for the common,
Yeah.
purpose
Yeah.
and good. I've noticed a huge change, like in the last 20 years. I
Yeah.
mean, from on the vendor side, as a
Oh,
sales
yeah.
rep, because I mean, I used to
Oh,
get
yeah.
called and screamed at like crazy, and my friends would be like, "Is that really happening?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, that's part of my job.
Yeah.
And so, but over time, it's just so interesting how much more empathetic,
Yeah.
the chefs are. And I don't know if there's more training on that and just how to manage people, because I've always wondered, like, do they have like, because I don't think chefs go into it knowing,
No.
or in the early days, that you're going to manage people, that you
No,
have,
you don't realize that.
yeah.
You don't
And
realize
so,
that. And they don't teach you that in culinary school.
still, even
I
to
mean,
this
I don't
day,
think, I don't think so. No, I think it's on you to like, you make those choices as a cook. Where do I want to work? What skills do I want to acquire? Do I want names on my resume? Do I want to learn technique? Do I just want to plow through? So you sort of make those choices, and you begin editing your career as you go. But I think you reach a point, if you want to be a chef, once you're in charge of people, whatever you think you were going to do, I kind of equate it to having children. Like, when my kid's not going to be on an iPad, I'm not going to do this. And then it happens, and you're like, oh my God, now I know why my chef was like he was, or now I know why the kitchen operates this way. So, you may start out like being a hard ass and have to soften, or you may start out trying to appease everybody, which you can't. And you stick to, this is who I am. And I always kind of take it back, because you're going to encounter a lot of egos still in this business. And like, when you have that situation where like a sous chef won't budge, or somebody gets stuck on a dish, or whatever it is, like, you have to really understand that it's not me. Like, even if I'm the chef owner, it's not me. This is the way I want it done. This is the way this restaurant does it. So, you come across that with certain dishes that are, quote unquote authentic, or, people like, this is not how you do carbonara, this is how you do it. Well, that's fine if you live in this region, but in this restaurant, these dishes work through a filter of the people cooking the food, the people contributing, the guests, what their expectation is, the ingredients you have available. And then this becomes your version of that dish. So, this is X restaurant, the style we do carbonara, this is what it is. And it may not be authentic to what if you lived in Italy, or your family did this growing up. But what's important is it's done this way in this restaurant, and it's done consistently. And then that's the expectation. When I go here, I don't order carbonara there because they don't do it the way I like it. That's fine, but you know what you're going to get. And that the consistency part is important. Knowing who you are, and then being able to do the same thing over and over again. And that's why it's hard as a cook or a sous chef. You go into a new restaurant with all these ideas, and you really have to take the time to learn, like, what is this restaurant? Why do they do things the way they do? And that's, as a chef, when I would take over a restaurant as a chef, take a new job, and like, all right, you're the chef here now. Instead of coming in and saying, all right, these are all the things I want to do, you've got to kind of listen and say, why do you do this? Why do you make the burger this way? Why is the salad station here? What is the thought process? Why did this develop this way? And then when you learn it, you go, okay, that makes sense. I disagree, or that makes sense, we'll leave it alone. And then you go in and you start putting your touches on it. But to come in just shooting it up and then figuring it out, it's like, you haven't taken the time to learn why they got where they are, because a lot of times there's reasons those things happen.
Yeah, I think that's true in lots of different, careers. It's like, when you come into a new position, understand it, sit back, watch, and listen.
It's hard. It's hard to do. You want to make your mark. You want to, and especially, the pressure. Like, if you're a chef taking over a restaurant, like, within a week or two, it's in the newspaper, so and so took over this spot, and people start coming, oh, what's his food? What's his menu? Like, it's been here for a week. Like, let them settle, and it takes months, weeks, a couple months to get sort of comfortable and know, like, and first of all, can I keep the staff? Most of the time, no. Most of the time, it's like, you're all great cooks, you all did a great job here, I'm sure, we appreciate what you did, but you guys got to go. I'm bringing my team in. Because you're going to get stuck with, that's not the way we used to do it, or I don't like that dish, I don't like your style. Like, it's almost better to just come in and say, thank you, everybody, we're going to close for 2 days, good luck to you all, I'm bringing in a new team. Because it's really hard to manage people's old expectations and create something new and change. So
yeah, change can be hard, but it's It's often
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, no, you always look back and say, wow, that was good. I needed that. But at the time, it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
So, I guess like being a chef is one thing, and coming in and owning the kitchen, but
Right.
being an actual chef and owner, that's a whole different ball of wax because you're paying the bills.
Yeah, no, and I tell people that I've worked with chefs to help them open restaurants. They say, well, I'm going to be the chef and the owner and whatever. I'm like, you're shortchanging one or the other, because to truly be an owner, you can't, I mean, you can be involved, but you have to be hands off. You have to have, like, because you're going to get pulled in directions you can't imagine. So if you're the owner and you've got to go to an investor meeting or the bank or fix a water heater, whatever it is, and you're like, well, I'm the chef also. Well, now who's doing the ordering and who's teaching the cooks if you're out for a day or two or you have an obligation? So I always tell people, when you open, if you're an owner and you're opening, never put yourself on the schedule. Never put yourself in a position of reliance for the staff. Have a chef, have a GM, be the owner, and let the people all do their roles. Now, if you're an owner and you want to cook a couple days a week or you want to work in the, okay, that's different. I work for Daniel Boulud, and he's otherworldly when it comes to being able to do many things well and have the brain that understands the cost and the operations of a restaurant and the creativity and the guest experience and the managing the cooks. Not a lot of people can do all those things. And even if you can, Danielle's the owner, but he's got a CEO and a CFO and marketing people and all those things. So he chooses to be in the kitchen all the time and as an owner. And like I said, very few people can do that. But he does that because he's got an incredible support staff. If it's as a mom and pop or a smaller restaurant or a first time owner, like I'm going to be the owner and I'll be in the kitchen. Yeah, you probably can do it, but you're going to cheat one of those areas. You're not going to do something well. And it's not fair to you or the team to not allow everybody to grow into their roles and let the restaurant develop. So that's the way I look at it.
I need that advice all the time. My
Well,
team is
listen,
like, yeah.
I've encountered that as a business owner now. I have a handful of people that work with me, but I don't have a full-time staff. I have people that work with me and I do this, but I end up doing owner stuff and I still love being in the kitchen. So I'm doing recipe development. So, should I be in the kitchen all the time doing development? I mean, that's kind of what they're paying for me to be in the kitchen doing that, but I should have someone with me doing the clerical stuff then, keep writing the recipes, taking photos. And sometimes I do, but, as a business owner, I feel that kind of pull. So as I give people this advice, I'm like, I should listen to my own advice sometimes, but it's tricky when you're managing and launching and trying to do your strengths well and, manage, what makes sense to delegate. And, the cost is always worth it to delegate the things that are, of less value to your time. So it's a tricky thing to figure out though.
Yeah, when you figure it out, like 100, will you let me know?
Yeah.
So, because I'm trying to figure that out myself. So to try to put down the bag and manage the business, and I'm thankful that we have such a talented team, and they're amazing at what they do, and they've been empowered to live out their skills. So, I'm curious, what do you like to do for fun outside of?
You're not going to believe me. I cook for fun. I love cooking with my kids. I like cooking at home. Is relaxing because there used to be no pressure. My kids have educated palates and opinions now. So I'll cook and I don't like that. I'm making something else. But for the most part, like cooking at home to me is fun and relaxing. And I love traveling. I'm very fortunate that two of the things I love to do are cooking and traveling, and I get to do it as part of my job. And I love traveling with my kids now, being able to see things sort of through, when they go somewhere for the first time, seeing through their eyes and sharing that experience is a lot of fun for me. What else do I do? My work is fun, to be honest with you. I'm lucky. When I'm home, I like to be with my kids a lot, whether it's, being involved in their sports or their activities. My daughter and I go pretty regularly. We go to a pottery place where you can paint pottery. Like they have the raw stuff and you paint. So we go there like at least once a month. we'll go in there and that's our kind of time together, and we'll sit and paint. And it requires a lot of patience. It's, really small kind of lines sometimes. So it's a little bit sort of tedious, but it's a really fun way to just be together. And, sometimes we talk, sometimes we don't, but just being together and like being creative. And I love kind of encouraging that creativity for my kids to have those outlets. My son loves to draw. He draws, he does Legos. They both have a lot of creative outlets, so I like to kind of participate in that with them.
That's amazing. I mean, that you're able to spend that time with your kids, have those conversations. I've heard that that's
Yeah.
like I've got kids get, they
Yeah, I
just
mean, you
turn,
have kids,
yeah,
and
they
it's
just
not
turned
even a
11.
conversation sometimes. It's
Yeah.
just like sometimes something will come out, but it's like I don't want to it's just like we'll just sit, and if she has things to share, she'll share them. And when you don't pressure them, they get in the car after school, like, how's school today? It's fine. That never works well. But when you go and do something that's like disarming, and you're just there, and like, she'll say stuff sometimes. I'm like, oh, where'd that come from? And you just kind of roll with it. So it's fun.
That's
I
amazing,
enjoy
because
that.
I'm sure it's challenging being a traveling,
Yeah, it's
traveling
hard.
for your business
Yeah.
and then creating that quality time with your kids.
Yeah.
So it sounds
Yeah.
like you're doing a great job
Yeah.
at that. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today. So,
Yeah.
do you have any other confessions?
Oh, my confession. My goodness. I don't know. I think what maybe something a lot of people don't know about me is how into yoga I am.
Oh, that's
I-
a great confession.
I found it about, I don't know, 15 years ago. I had a cook actually who told me, hey, chef, why don't you come to yoga with me? I was like, okay. And I went with him, and I hated it. And I didn't go back for a little while. And then I had back issues, and, counters in kitchens are made for people that are 5'9", 5'8", 5'9", probably. And, being 6'2", I'm like bent over a lot. So, working the line, picking up saute pans and being hunched over, like your posture is terrible, your eating habits are terrible, your sleep is like everything about it is like, if you're not aware of how bad it is for you. And I just kind of felt like I did it a couple of times. I'm like, you know what? I feel a little bit better. I felt like I was standing straighter. And it was funny because in the beginning it was just physical. It was like, I feel stretch and straighter, and like, this is probably good. And then eventually I started feeling like the calming effect of that. It's a moving meditation. So like leaving yoga and feeling, okay, I got my exercise, but also I felt like, okay, I feel a little calmer right now. Like I can take a little bit more, less anxiety or whatever it was. And it was like, I started understanding both sides of it, and it took a while. And, it's funny now I do it, and I do it I'm actually looking into doing teacher training, because I'd like to teach, just because of what it's done for me in terms of like my health and the way I approach working so much, and that balance it's created. And it's not something that it's a lot of restaurant people, there are people that do it, but I think like doing restaurant focused kind of classes to, for cooks or servers to be able to have a class that really focuses on like the muscle group that you're using in your work life to kind of counterbalance that and have that approach. And it's just, once you start doing it, all right, I'm not going to go drinking every night. Maybe I'm going to go a couple nights now because I want to get up and do a class tomorrow, or I'm going to go in the afternoon. So gradually it sort of starts changing your mindset of finding the balance in life that we just tend as restaurant people, we just go overboard with everything. Like if there's food on the table, we're eating it all. If there's drinks, drinks till the last call. If there's a party to go to, party to the end. It's just so hardcore. So when you start recognizing it and saying, okay, maybe I need to pull back a little bit and find, do it. I'm never going to not eat. That's my whole life is around food, but I want to be able to eat as I wish. So I need to find balance somewhere else, sleep better, drink less, exercise, whatever it is, so that I can continue to, pursue that passion line. So that's, that's something that not a lot of people expect, when they.
I was not expecting that. So, favorite pose?
Favorite pose?
Yoga pose?
Wow. Handstand. I've finally been able to get a handstand. So
fun. We should do one.
I'll do one with you.
Well, I can't today, but
probably not a good idea.
Probably not a good idea. But
all right.
Yeah,
we can do one.
That's awesome. Vinyasa, like hot yoga.
Hot vinyasa. Yes. Yeah.
Good. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was fun. I'm going to ask
Enjoy
you
it.
to come back again.
Yeah,
'cause you're
definitely.
a fascinating person.
You'll have to
So-
come to New York, and we'll do it with my kids. That'll be
Yes!
fun. Hear their
I want to
hear their
interview
cooking
your
stories.
kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I need a chocolate chip cookie. So.
Oh my God. She made. So I took my son to Giants practice last week, and I have a friend that works for the team. So I said, we're coming out. My daughter can't make it, but she'd love to make you something. And she's like, yeah, whatever she wants to make. So she made chocolate chip cookies, and she gave them to me. And she goes, give them to Miss Ashley, but they have to be for the team. I'm like, there's 100 guys on the team. They're not. She's like, I want the players to eat them. I'm like, all right. So I gave them to my friend, and I said, can you take these in the meeting room with a defensive lineman or whoever? Can you take it in? She really wants to make sure they eat them. So she called me that night. She's like, two of the defensive linemen, like, those are the best chocolate chip cookies they ever had. Where can they get them? So I told my daughter, I said, be careful. You may be baking for them during the season now. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want her on my team. So
Yeah.
she's awesome.
I'm lucky to have her on my team.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much.
All
And
right. Thank you.
yeah, thanks for joining
We'll
us
see you
today.
soon.
Yeah, on
All right.
Confessions Beyond the Food. For more inspiration, follow our social media at W3Cells. Please like, comment, and subscribe. All the things. We would love to connect with you.
You and I come from different worlds. Go-go dancers, to me, are like in between strip clubs and nightclubs.
You lived my dream.
Yes.
Because when I graduated college, it was like that it had just come out, like the shadow box dancers, and I was like, I really want to be a shadow box dancer, but it's too late because I had a job, so I was like, missed it.
It's a very slippery slope, because the next thing you know, you're full on
Just taking it off.
strip club, and then the money's too good, and then you're like, oh, I'm just doing it to pay for a bill, and then you live the lifestyle. I mean,
I don't want anyone to touch me. Like, that's why I love going to dance and no, I just want to dance on the highest platform by myself. I don't want anyone to touch me. Alex, if you heard that, you can include that in the podcast, right?